Alright, what's up everyone? I just wanted to do a video here where I address the big elephant in the room, which is my putting. I'm so terrible at putting, and I want to get better, but I feel like I don't really know how to approach my form and my technique when I'm trying to putt and trying to get better at putting. So I want to try and take a look at these four putters. I picked Kevin, Ricky, Paul, and Eagle specifically because I think that the four of them have really distinct putting styles and they're also excellent putters. And I wanted to kind of take a look at each four of them and see what they had similar and what they had different in their putting forms. And so I want to try and isolate each of these and take a look at a couple different things. So the first thing I want to look at is like the depth. How deep are they getting into their throw before they throw it, right? So here we can see that when we get down low, we can see all four of them have this kind of like low reach into their putt, reach forward with it, and they move forward through their throw. But let's take a look at each of them right here. We look at Kevin, we can see it's like super low, right? He's down almost touching the grass. And then as he puts up and follow through, he releases here. It kind of comes out probably about knee or thigh height, maybe hip height, depending on the angle that he needs to release at, if it's like a elevated putt or downhill. But you can see that he starts real low and pushes it out. When we get to Ricky, we can see also he's low. He's under his knee. His hand is under his knee, and he comes out for it. His actually doesn't travel as far as Kevin does, right? It doesn't come up as high, but it releases in the same spot that Kevin does, around his thigh or hip. So when we see Paul, we can see his is like above his knee by his thigh, and then he pushes it forward, and he gets it like up by his chest, under his shoulder almost when he releases it. So he is much higher on the release, and starts higher in the depth. Still low though, right? He's not starting above his waist. And then of course Eagle, who is he's I think he's the only I guess he's the only spin putter in this group of guys. I'm not exactly sure what makes a spin putt and a push putt. But you can see here, he's got this kind of like curving motion where he kind of brings it into his body after his low depth, and then he pushes it out, and he kind of comes out and gets it out in front of him too, up under his chest or under his shoulder, up pretty high. And you look at these four guys, and the things that I see in common are they're starting low, and they all kind of get up to the same distance to get the rotation on the disc. It's coming up almost the same amount for each of them. Kevin kind of has more. That might just be this particular putt, but when you look at all four of them, that's one thing I noticed is that they all have this depth and they all reach out. But like, if you look at Ricky and Eagle, they have like a similar distance they travel vertically, and if you look at Kevin and Paul, they have the same distance they travel vertically. But then you talk about the depth, and you got Kevin and Ricky having a similar depth, and Eagle and Paul having a similar depth. So, one of the things I think that when I do when I putt is I don't actually think about how far I'm bringing my hand down. I just kind of think about trying to get it into the basket. And people always say this, like, oh, don't think about it. Don't think about your putt. But there's like no way I can do that. Every time I step up to a putt, I'm thinking about every little detail, and I don't even know what I'm thinking about. And I think that's one of the more challenging things about putting for me is that I don't know what to think about. I don't know where I'm supposed to put my hand or my fingers and my thumb and my grip, and so I want to really try and focus on smaller aspects to see what I'm doing. The other thing I really wanted to take a look at was the weight transfer. And so when you're looking at this idea of the weight transfer, one of the things that I thought for a while, just kind of on a cursory watching of people putt, is that they like start on their back foot and they kick out of their back foot to putt into their throw, right? So if you watch them, right, it looks like they're really pushing off that back foot in order to get the extra power into the throw. And I was trying to do that for a while, and I felt like I was always like the timing of that is so weird. Like I couldn't nail it down. Like I felt like I was like kind of bouncing off my left back foot and not really getting a strong transfer of power from the legs into the putt. But I slowed this down for each of them, and I think what I realized is their back foot doesn't actually kick up off the ground and give force. Their back foot is actually just transferring the weight into the front foot, and then the back foot just lifts off the ground. So it's actually the front foot that's giving the weight transfer, or that's giving really the extra power in the putt. Like, look at his foot. That does not look like he's kicking off the ground. It doesn't look like there's any force coming from that back foot. So even though you can see here, he's on his back foot, right? Or at least some of the weight is on the back foot. And as he comes through, that foot just lifts off the ground. It doesn't actually push off and give extra force to the throw. So it's got to be the right foot that's doing that. Same thing with Paul here, right? Like, if you look, he's on his toe. So like watching him, I always thought, oh, he's kicking with his toe. And if you watch it in full speed, yeah, you think that he's kicking off his toe to really get that push on the disc, but I don't think he is. Like, if you watch this and slow down, look, his toe just comes off. It doesn't look like he's digging into the ground, and I think the kick and the curl of the leg makes it look like he's doing that, but it's really just coming right off the ground. So I think it's the front foot that really has to apply the extra force in order to give a little bit of power to the disc as you're bringing your arm up. Look at that. With Eagle here, Eagle, because he's spin putting, I think that he uses his legs a lot less, which is why he like can be on his knee and nail like 45-foot putts with all body. But even him, like if you look, that foot just comes off the ground. It doesn't kick off the ground. So it's got to be the front leg extending out that's giving him the power. It's got to be. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on this. If you guys feel like there's something I'm missing, please let me know in the comments. Like, I'm just trying to figure out what to do here. Even with Kevin, hard to tell because he's perpendicular to the basket, right? So there's no back foot. But if you think that, okay, his right foot is his dominant foot, you can see one of the things he does here is he twists his body. So, like, even though his left foot is involved in bringing the weight forward, he turns his hip and he's almost like pushing and turning his body with his right foot towards the basket. Like, he's using his right leg to push towards the basket. His body even contorts in that direction, and you can see that like his right heel comes off second before a little bit more than the left one. So that's got to be applying more force. You'll see this later when you get to his jump putts. But here's this from the back angle to really reinforce it. I feel like this makes it really clear. Like, as he goes through to lift into the putt, there's no kick. That toe just comes right off the ground. Right, so then it's got to be that the left foot is really just transferring the weight into the forward foot, and then the right leg is pushing up, and the left leg is just in for the ride. And then it curls to maintain balance. Here's Ricky, even on a steep hillside where you think you would need that back foot to push, just lifts up, and that right leg is really dealing with all the force. It's dealing with all the tension. Right, he just lifts it up, and that kick again, making it look like he curls. All right, so here's Kevin's jump putt. You can see here, as he comes up, that right foot is the one that pushes off at the end to really give force into the jump putt, and he lands on his left foot, right? So yes, the left foot is involved in this putt because he's perpendicular to the basket, but it's the right leg that's giving most of the force. Like, tell me that he's jumping off that left leg first and then pushing off the right leg last. No, it's got to be that right leg, the dominant leg, really giving the force on the putt, and then turning his body towards the basket. So, I'm not sure that's something that's super important. It feels super important to me because every time I try to time my back foot into the putt, I feel like I'm doing this weird bounce thing. I don't know what's going on. But here I have the front angle. I want to take a look at the hinge on their arm. All right, so we can just kind of look at this and see what the hinge looks like in each of their arms. So, looking at Kevin here, you got a slight hinge in his arm, right, at his big depth. Not that big of a bent arm, but as he comes up, it just straightens out. It doesn't actually. I feel like he's not really using the bend in his arm to add rotation under the disc, right? And then you look at Ricky, and Ricky's arm is straight the whole time, just straight down, comes up, straight up. Right? Paul has more hinge. Definitely has more hinge in his arm, and he comes up and straightens out, holds it. And same thing with Eagle. Eagle has a ton of hinge because he's spin putting for sure. He's doing that as well. So overall, one of the things I noticed is that they all have very different styles. A lot of things are different, but the similarities are there too. And I think that, one of the things as a putter you have to do is you have to find out what works for you and keep it really consistent no matter what. And so here's Kevin Jones putting at multiple distances, shorter to farther. And you can see no matter what distance he's putting from,
certainly not all of that. 42% of the
form
field
doesn't change. Right? It doesn't matter if it's a
35
jump
feet
putt.
for the birdie.
That depth is still there. That hinge in his arm, that slight hinge in his arm is still there.
His par from
and
57.
the way he applies force with his legs still there. And here's Paul too. Right? Doesn't matter what distance he's putting from. That back foot's still doing the curl.
All three
his hands always above his knee as
par
he
putts,
loads up
and
his putt.
each one
always releasing
usual
the same
full
point.
committed jump putt from that range. Wow, that was a huge starting putt.
Hill doesn't matter. And here's the last thing I wanted to show you. Is like this is probably like a 35, 40-foot putt maybe. He's like slightly outside the circle. But look at his back foot again. So first of all, his hinges in his arm is there. It's loaded up in the same spot. It doesn't change. But look at the back foot. As he explodes out, the toe just lifts up. He's not kicking with that back foot. I don't know why. I always just thought he was kicking with that foot. So, yeah, I don't know. It's something to think about. I really want to start working on my putting more. I've been doing a lot of field work, and I'm getting pretty good at working in the field, but I'm still really bad at working on putting. So I'm hoping that watching this will help me build some kind of consistency and maybe kind of develop my own style of putting. I'm not exactly sure if spin putting or push putting or whatever is right for me, but yeah, I don't know.